Welcome back to Real Talk, the show where we sit down with real investors, doing real deals, and uncover what's actually working in today's market. Today's guest is Vince James, a real estate wholesaler who's based in Chicago, who's running deals across Illinois, Wisconsin, as well as Indiana. Vince is known for building strong joint venture partnerships and also closing deals by working with other investors as well. So in this conversation, we're going to break down how Vince actually got started, why JVs has become a key part of his business, and also how he's built a wholesaling operation that's working across 3 different states. So Vince, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us. If you don't mind, can you give us a small intro about yourself, like where you're based and what exactly pulled you into the real estate wholesaling?
Thank you for having me first off. And I guess kind of how I got started. I started in high school wholesaling, trying to wholesale. My senior year of high school, I was 18, tried wholesaling. That was in the beginning of 2023. I stuck with it until 2024, didn't do one deal for 15 months. And then last year in June of 24, I closed my first deal. It was a $5,000 assignment on a 27 unit full gut building in the south side of Chicago. And then every single month since then, I've been doing 1 to 3 deals per month. And I do JV deals, like I said, but I found a lot of success by like truly building a network of investors and all other wholesalers in my own market, in the markets I'm working. And I just know most of the investors, most of the wholesalers. So it's very important to be tapped into your market in order to kind of know who's buying this, who's buying that, who has cash, who is using hard money. And, it's a matter of getting your roots in a market and really grinding and just getting in contact with a lot of people. That's where I found my success.
That's amazing. Obviously, when you started with Chicago, right? What exactly made you decide to move beyond Chicago and start doing deals in like Wisconsin, Indiana?
Sure. I had a buddy who was younger than I was. I played football with him. This was last summer. He was 17 at the time. I was 18. And I taught him how to wholesale briefly. He comes to me with a lead about 5 hours away from Chicago in Southern Illinois. Anyways, we run the deal. I get my buyer through there. We lock up the deal. It was a $47,000 spread. And then right there, I was like, oh, I don't have to be local. I could go anywhere where there's a deal. So that opened my eyes. Any deal that comes across my desk, I look at as a potential deal, whether it's 5 hours away or it's my next door neighbor. I've done deals where I've never seen the property, literally like 200, 300, 400 miles away from where I'm at. I've done deals literally door knocked like my neighbor's houses and done deals like that.
That's amazing. I know you mentioned a lot about the fact that you do a lot of JV deals. So for someone who's actually very new to the real estate market, would you mind explaining what JV is in wholesaling terms or like in a very simple term?
It stands for joint venture. So 2 people joining and going in on a venture together. Whether it's like my JVs, I'll teach someone how to wholesale. They'll bring me a lead. I'll run the numbers, lock up the contract, and then I'll sell the contract and we JV on the deal. We both get paid because we partnered on it. So I think it's important if you're starting in wholesale. A lot of my first deals, I JV'd with better wholesalers and people in my market who were doing deals. And from there, that's really how I learned my disposition process, how to sell a deal, and actually like transactional coordination, emailing the title company, going back and forth about title, stuff like that. Utilized my JVs and JV'd with people who knew more than I did or who are doing better than I was. And that's essentially how I learned through joint venture agreements. It was huge in teaching me how to actually do a deal, do the transactional coordination, speaking to lenders, running showings and dispositions. So I think JVs are super important, and all a JV is working with someone else. That's all it is.
Okay, I hope our audience got a good understanding of what exactly joint venture means in real estate. Thank you so much for the explanation. Obviously, when it comes to looking for like doing joint ventures with a partner, what exactly do you look for before agreeing to work with them?
I'm not necessarily looking at the person. I look at the deal the person's bringing me or the value they're bringing me. And if it makes sense, then I could kind of understand they know what they're doing, or maybe they don't, but at least they have a deal. And I look more at the quality of the deal, the quality of the lead, rather than looking for a person to actually JV with. I'd rather look for the opportunity, and usually it could be anyone. You could JV with anyone. I was just talking to a gentleman who owns a fire and water restoration company in my area, and he just told me he'll I pay him $1,000 to $3,000 per wholesale deal, he'll start giving me sellers. And like, that's a good example of a joint venture. I guess I'm looking for value with a joint venture, someone who's bringing value to me, and I could also bring value to them by selling their deal, underwriting the property, etc.
So do you think there would be any common mistakes you see when investors make when they're trying to do any JVs together?
Yeah, for sure. See, one, you have to set expectations for a JV. Hey, look, say I'm JVing with someone and I'm selling their deal. More times than not, it's a little more difficult to find a seller. So the person who brought the seller to the table is going to get paid a little more. But that needs to be discussed beforehand between the JVing parties. If that's not discussed until the deal is on the table, it can get messy. People can get greedy. People can get angry at each other. And I've seen it happen with myself, like where I've JV'd a deal and person who I sold the deal for makes 80% of the profit. And it's like, well, if you just set that proper expectations beforehand, all of that can be avoided. So I think setting proper expectations is very important, not to get burned or not feel like you got burnt.
So obviously, like before you go into any venture deals, it's always good to have like a proper verbal agreement or maybe a written agreement so that you both know what exactly you're going to get out of it, let's say, from that one deal, right?
Exactly. Set proper expectations and just set proper expectations and understand that know your value. If you're selling a deal, that's valuable. And if you have a lead that is under contract, that's also valuable. So understanding your value within the deal and setting clear expectations is super important for all JV deals.
So obviously, I know that you work across different markets, as you mentioned, like Wisconsin, Indiana, Chicago. So how do you keep track of these different market dynamics, even timelines when it comes to these multiple states?
So I'm in the Midwest and they're all similar. The nuances are more with, like, for example, in Illinois, wholesaling is banned. So we'll either double close on deals out in Illinois, or we'll partner with the buyer and do what's called a consultation and get paid that way. So there's workarounds for small stuff like that. And then as far as Wisconsin, Indiana, and Illinois, all very similar markets. So there's not many nuances. It's very similar underwriting, very similar type of buyers. It's a lot of buy and hold people or straight fix and flip people. And because all of my markets are in proximity to each other, there's not many differences as far as like market analytics or market nuances. They're pretty similar markets.
Makes sense. I just want a couple more questions for you. How long have you been doing joint ventures as well as been in the real estate market for?
I've been trying to wholesale full-time, actively wholesaling for about 2.5 years. I've been doing deals for a little over a year, and I've been JVing. Majority of my deals are personal deals. I don't JV. I've done 2, 3, maybe 4 JV deals, which I love doing. I love a JV deal. But majority of my deals come from in-house marketing and are just straightforward cash deals.
Would you be open to talking about one of your most recent deal that really stood out, or one of the best deals you had in a long time?
Sure. There's one I closed last month that was pretty cool. I reached out to the seller back in October of last year, and then I had about 60 touches. So I called, texted, voicemail dropped this guy about 60 times. And then in June, signed a contract with him at $120,000. And then I assigned it for $147,000 and closed on it in July. But what was cool about that deal is I first got in touch with the guy in October, beginning of October. So almost like 9 months ago. And then the deal closed this month for $27,000.
I think one thing which a lot of people who are not actually aware of wholesaling real estate being as a real estate investor is the number of follow-ups you have to do in order to just get even one deal closed. I think that's something which I don't think a lot of people do take that into account. And
I'll say, like I said, I've been wholesaling for 2.5 years. A lot of the deals I did in my first year, like last year, were follow-ups that I had from like 2 years ago. Like I was following up with these people for 6, 7, 8 months. And that's a huge part of this game. The sales cycle is long. Selling a house is a huge decision, and it's usually a price thing. They're not selling to you because your price is not where they want it, or it's a timeline thing, and that's it. And a timeline thing could mean, timeline can be dependent on a child being born or a job being lost. So it's so important to just be on the top of these sellers' heads continually and be the person they think of when they think of selling their house, so that when that time comes, when that circumstance changes and the time is right, you're the top of their mind. And I think that's so important when wholesaling, and a lot of people misunderstand that. They think they're going to get in touch with someone and do a deal in a month or 2 months. Yes, it's possible. Yes, I've done deals where We get in touch with the seller and it closes 40 days later and we're paid. But majority are not like that. Like 70% of the deals are long-term follow-ups because like I said, it's either a price thing, you're too low, or it's a time thing. And a time thing is actually a circumstance thing. And circumstances change randomly. So you got to be on top of these people and just make sure you are touching them, texts, calls, emails, and just being friends with the sellers. A lot of the sellers I do deals with, I'm literally friends with for months before we do the deal. I'm taking them out to breakfast. I'm going and picking them up and getting literal, like buying cat food for their cats. It's a relational business. So like you have to build these long-term relationships and just nurture these leads and they will convert. It's a people's business. I will sure as hell wouldn't sell my childhood home to some D-bag who just is like, let me buy your property. No, I'm going to sell it to the person who like cared, was interested, had a real conversation with me, etc. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a lot of the follow-up as well as the relationship part, right? So basically be ready when they're ready to sell. Like obviously you should be the first person they should think of, you know what? Yeah, hey man, I'm planning on like selling my house. You know what? Yes, Vince actually checked up on me a couple of times ago. Maybe, yeah, he might be the best person.
Yeah, you just want to, even if it's, if a seller wants to sell, but they don't agree to a price with you immediately on the phone, you got to do your research, kind of know where you have to be at, understand their circumstance. And then just when you're following up, you don't even have to follow up about the house. Just actually call them. If they mentioned they're a Blackhawks fan, they like hockey, call them a week later when you're following up and be like, hey, did you see the Hawks game? Then boom, you're naturally in a conversation. You're their friend. You're not in a sales position. Then when you call them in 2 months and you're like, hey man, I know it's Vince again. I'm actually just following up about the house. One, he knows who you are, your friends. You've talked about life together and you've made a friendship with the guy. Then if he's actually like ready to sell at that point, he'll be like, yeah, come take a look at it. And there you go. There's your deal,
That's amazing, Vince. Thank you so much for sharing the story as well as the deeper insights on what exactly is happening behind the scenes, especially when it comes to a wholesaler or an investor. So before we wrap up, would you mind giving our audience a piece of advice on basically, let's say for the new people who are planning on like getting into the real estate business or planning on getting into doing JVs or wholesaling?
Yeah, I would say know exactly what it is that you want, because if you don't want it bad enough, you will not get it. The people I see succeed wholesaling want it so bad they don't give up until they're successful. And anyone who gives up beforehand, before they do a deal, before they see a deal, it's not that it was too hard, because it's very hard. It's not that it was too difficult. It's that they actually didn't want it bad enough. So know what you want, because what you want is what you'll get. And, if you don't want it bad enough, don't do it. It's a waste of time. You'll end up hurting your own ego. You'll be like, oh, I suck at wholesaling. I'm not good at business. No, man, you didn't want it not hard enough, so you didn't try. So I'd just say know what you want and fucking believe in yourself and put full effort into what you want, and you'll get it. Don't give up. So yeah, basically just know what you want and don't give up. That's it.
Thank you so much for that advice, Vince. I'm pretty sure like our viewers would take that into account, especially if they want to get into this game. Knowing that it's not an easy game, it is something which you have to like dedicate yourself properly into. And I think that's something which we notice, especially when we do talk to like a couple of other investors and wholesalers who do know, like people are planning on doing this thing, like, part-time, they don't see that much of a success which is happening. Obviously, yeah, because that's like a half effort which they're putting in, right? So yeah, it totally makes sense.
And then just to bounce off that, sorry, I know we're going long, but I was going to say, like, if you don't see success in wholesaling, it is very hard. It's difficult to get the ball rolling, but in the season where you're not earning any money and you're trying it, that's truly the season where you're learning how to do it and truly where you're getting the skills that are going to pay you in the future. So another piece of advice I'd say to everyone is just understand that while you're trying and failing, you're building the foundation and the skills in which are going to end up paying you. So if you have that and you believe that while you're actually doing the work, it's not going to seem hard. You're going to be very intrinsically motivated, That's kind of what I was. And that's why I didn't give up. And that's why, thank God, I am seeing success. And that's just my honest advice. Just don't give up. Believe it's possible. If you want it, it is possible, and work hard.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for that advice, Vince. I'm pretty sure like our viewers would really appreciate it, especially when they're going back into this game again. So, well, there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for being part of the show, as well as listening into Vince's journey, as well as his advice on wholesaling, as well as joint ventures. So Tune in next week where we'll be coming with new episode, new stories, as well as new updates. Once again, thank you so much, Vince, for being part of the show.